had that thing in my brain where once I found something that felt good, like I just wanted more of it. My parents cried more tears than I've seen anybody cry whenever I was really deep in my addiction. The power of prayer is real. You know, I had no secrets. I just let everyone know what was going on, where I was at. I knew I couldn't do it alone. So I just outsourced church, the fellowship, and just maintained, contact with my higher power. It wasn't easy. And my mom had temporary custody when I lost her. So my daughter wasn't put in a system, no foster care, no group home, no any of that.
I'm Flint Anderson, founder of Pain, Parents and Addicts in Need. I've been in recovery since 2001, and there isn't much I don't know about recovery. And my mission is to constantly tell the truth about addiction, to make the realities of addiction, recovery, and drug culture known, and to drive awareness and advocate change that ultimately saves lives.
And I'm Jason LaChance, a certified recovery coach with a passion for speaking with others and sharing their knowledge to help others seek recovery and maintain long-term sobriety. And this is the Don't Hide the Scars podcast, presented by Pain, Parents and Addicts in Need. Courtney Proper, thank you for joining me on Pain's Don't Hide the Scars podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to see you again.
You too.
Thriving in your recovery and sobriety. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you. I'm proud of you as well. All credit to God, though,
That's right. So how long do you have now?
Almost 7 years. My sobriety date is March 3rd, 2018.
That is totally awesome. I love it. You've done so much. Of course, your book. Why don't we tell people a little bit about your book, because that is your story, but we're going to dive more into your knowledge through your recovery than your story. But I want people to be aware that your book is out there and available to, it's a great read, especially if not just for someone in recovery, but a loved one of someone in recovery.
Yeah. So the book, just kind of, gets the basics of how I was raised, what happened, and how my choices affected my life, and then how I found recovery. And it goes into depth about my losing custody of my daughter. It talks about how my parents were a huge support system. And, I didn't get the hang of it the first couple times in rehab, but eventually I did. And the end of it kind of talks about what I do to stay clean, how my life has kind of come together, and kind of goes into a little bit of how the support system is really key in maintaining sobriety, because nobody can do it on their own. So it kind of goes into depth about that as well.
Absolutely. I know I couldn't, I'm so grateful for the 12-step fellowship that welcomed me in. But you said something very key there too. Your family was so supportive. And we are literally parents and addicts in need. So that's what we do, and try to help the family. How have you had maybe conversations with your parents and how they handled situations when you were struggling? And you had a sibling that struggled too, correct?
Yes, yeah.
I
did. And she's just a few less months clean than me. We're both almost 7 years. She got clean about 3 months after me. They struggled at first because neither one of them had any substance abuse issues. And I think, at the beginning, whenever me and my sister were both kind of getting heavy into everything, they blamed themselves a little bit. But after a while, and now that we have significant clean time under our belt, we've had a lot more open conversations. And I reassure them, I think there's a stigma that if your child's an addict or struggles with substance abuse, it's a reflection of the parenting. And in my personal opinion, I have to reiterate that is not the case, because in my book as well, I go into how I was raised really well. We didn't struggle. Me and my sister were wanting for nothing. My parents split when I was 12, but it wasn't even an unhealthy divorce. It was very civil. We still saw both parents. They always attended, all of our school activities and extracurriculars. We just kind of, I'm not going to speak for her, but I just kind of had that thing in my brain where once I found something that felt good, I just wanted more of it, and so the beginning, and whenever me and my sister were both in rehab, I know my parents were kind of hard on themselves. What did we do wrong? What could we have done better? And, like I said, we've had more open conversations recently, and I think they're understanding a little bit more that, they didn't really do anything wrong. Parenting doesn't come with a manual. And I think they've kind of quote forgiven themselves, I guess. But I do know that they're very proud of us now, you know, so like as hurt and as defeated, I think that they felt whenever, you know, we had needles in our arms. I think they're very proud of us now because we're able to, you know, get through that and, you know, recommit ourselves to the church and things like that. So they struggled with it for a while though. I mean, my parents cried more tears than I've seen anybody cry, you know, whenever I was really deep in my addiction. But the important thing was for me to let them know, you know, I know it seems like it, but y'all did nothing wrong. You know, I hated, that was one of the most shameful, or yeah, I guess shameful, but hurtful things too, was just to see my parents like so beside themselves. And before I got clean, like I couldn't stop, but I wanted their pain to stop. Like I wanted them to know, like, this is not your fault. Like I'm just fucked up. Like it isn't you, like it's all me. And you know, it took a
Oh,
while, but like I said, we have an open communication, and they have been there for me, you know, since day one, and they've gone above and beyond to make sure that, you know, I'm healthy, and whatever they can do to, like, you know, make my life a little less stressful, they are there. And I know that not everybody is blessed to have that, which is why, you know, making a support system and reaching out and, you know, having a network of sober people is so, so important, because I know a lot of people struggle who don't have family or their families in the addiction.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm very blessed with that. But my parents struggled for a bit. They were
Sure.
definitely, you know, hard on themselves for a long
Sure.
time.
Sure. Well, and the interesting thing in getting to know you more on a personal level is and we see it a lot around here where we are, you know, our central locations, Fresno, California. There's plenty of affluent families that do really well and their children fall into substance abuse and or
Mhm.
addiction issues. um and we've heard that same thing, that blame, you know, well, you know, they never went without, they thrived in sports, they thrived in
Mhm.
school. Well, you are one of those. You
Yeah.
were a thriver too. And sometimes I think for high achievers too, you know, there's the shutting down of the brain, or all of a sudden we get attached to certain storytelling where we're, you know, our self-worth is so much attached to our activities and achievements and
Right.
these things. And so sometimes it is those cases where there isn't any sort of issue. I talked to a gentleman the other day that uh friends introduced me to. Is like, you got to get to know this guy, and his story was very similar to yours. Family did well, couldn't find a lineage of addiction, not anywhere in his family,
Mhm.
went back. And he's just the one that fell into it and, you know, had some of those issues. And so sometimes these things just happen. They just do, just life plays out this way. And, and I don't know, God continues to deliver mysteries to my life. So, that's a big step where that acceptance, because it has to happen not only for the addict, but the loved ones as well.
Right. Right. Yeah. And, you know, I feel like unless you're an addict, you know, the normal people can't quite fully comprehend, you know? And so I know my parents still kind of like don't get it, but they love me through it. Right. And that's all we can really ask of like the normal people in our family, is just to, you know, tough love when it's necessary, but also just to like never stop being there, because they're doing all that they can do as far as like the support goes and the love and, you know, being there for me. So, you know, they won't get it like me and you get it, but they get it as much as they possibly can, if that makes
Sure.
sense.
Well, your book also beautifully, well, shouldn't say beautifully, it eloquently lays out the most difficult situation of your life. And being that you were a parent, you did lose custody of your daughter, what you have back now. And
Right.
and I know Flint, the founder here at Pain, has helped some people and counseled them in and through some of those processes, but maybe help people, um, you know, speak to the suffering addict who is a parent on some of that for you, some of that healing. I mean, your daughter was young, but I know she does have some recollection of sometimes, but you know, how for you, how in addition to not only the 12-step support, but where did you find additional support for that process too?
Yeah. So, I mean, first and foremost, losing custody is hard. I mean, it is something that I never thought would happen to me. Like a lot of people, I felt invincible. You know, I hadn't had any major car accidents or done any of like the most god awful things. So, like, how could I possibly lose custody? Um, Department of Family and Children's Services, DFCS, they make it, in my opinion, all this is just in my opinion, they make it very difficult for the reunification process. So I was very discouraged. Obviously, usually when people first get clean, they've got a lot of loose ends to tie up. They've got, a list as long as your arm of things they need to do, whether it be legal or, custody battles or what have you. But I really found a lot of support in the fellowships. There was quite a few people at the group that I chose at the beginning of my sobriety that had custody battle issues. They lost it to CPS, or their significant other wasn't an addict, and so they got sole custody in a messy divorce. So circumstances were all a little bit different. Every situation is unique, but it was all the same thing. Like, I lost my kid because I am an addict. What do I do? And what I did is I did what CPS asked. It was long and hard. It was not something like, check these boxes and then here's your kid back. It was a very tedious process. Obviously the drug tests and the counseling and the parenting classes and all of the things. But, I started going back to church, and I did my AA meetings, and I just talked about it. I got past the shame part of it, because I could tell that if I wasn't able to converse with others about it, it was just going to send me back into a spiral, right? Like, secrets keep you sick. And so as hard as it was for me at the beginning, it got a lot easier, because usually when you open up in a meeting, someone's going to come and talk to you and either share their experience or guide you in a way where you can find resources to help you with that. The fellowships are very good resource. They have good resources available, just because people have been around and they know what to do, and they've, been where you're at. So I shared a lot in meetings. I got my sponsor, and, she had similar problems, not exactly, but, we had the same drug of choice. We both had custody issues. We both had the same legal issues, that sort of thing. So talking about it really helped. And then, like I said, I started going back to church, and I know some people have a stigma with the church, like organized religion and stuff. But again, I'm very, very blessed, because my church family, they did not shun me. They weren't like, oh, you're an addict, don't come back. Churches shouldn't be like that, period. It's sad to say that I'm lucky that my church isn't like that, because churches just shouldn't be like that. I should not have to preface that statement. Anyways, but lots of prayer. I always had a higher power. Obviously, I lost touch with him whenever I was in my addiction, but the power of prayer is real. I had no secrets. I just let everyone know what was going on, where I was at, and I knew I couldn't do it alone. So I just outsourced church, the fellowship, and just maintained, contact with my higher power. And, like I said, it wasn't easy. And my mom had temporary custody when I lost her. So I didn't have to go through, my daughter wasn't put in a system, no foster care, no group home, no any of that. It's an uphill battle, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. So for those who are going through it, or, you feel like you've been going through it forever, I felt that way. It took 4 years. That is a long time, especially sober. Like, that's a long time. But I was nothing without her, right? Like, I felt like she gave me something to fight for. And so even on my, darkest days when I was super discouraged, I'm one decision away from going back to exactly where I started. And then the process would just start all over again. So I just, kept that in my mind. And when I was starting to feel some type of way, especially about giving up, or just like, oh, like, this is never going to end, or this is impossible, I picked up the phone and I talked to someone about it. And I really do believe, the power, the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel, because it is. My parents couldn't understand. I couldn't call them, even though they wanted to be there for me. There's ways that they can't be there for me, because they don't know. So I just made sure I had my contacts available. And even if I didn't really feel like talking, there was a point where I knew, like, if I don't do this, like, I'm not going to get my kid back. That's just what it is. It's a very simple statement, but it holds a lot of gravity. And so, knowing that, and also knowing people who got their kids back, gave me the hope and stuff. And I read a lot of memoirs. That was one of the reasons I wrote mine. And so, I just kept thinking, it's possible. It's hard, but it's not impossible. People do it all the time. You just have to want it bad enough.
Granville Home of Hope, here we go again.
2024, we're back. Granville Homes is building a brand new home. We're going to give it away on December 4th, 2024. You can get your ticket. It's $100, or you can get a bundle of tickets for $200, which includes the chance of winning a brand new Lexus for 2 years. And Payne will receive 100% of all the proceeds from the tickets that we sell, as well as the 8 other nonprofits that are involved with this event. So you can go to our website. You can find out there how you purchase the tickets. We can't sell the tickets online for legal reasons. But other than that, you can call our number. You can reach out to our office, and we'll show you how to get those. So help us out.
Well, and you said something so valuable there. I don't know if it gets outside of the recovery circles, because I never heard it before, was, our secrets keep us sick. And I think it's a fact, and not only for those of us in recovery, but also our loved ones. Mm-hmm. I know that there was a lot of my story growing up in a home of addiction, so differing from yours, that there was we don't talk about those things. But like, once my dad, especially when I started my recovery journey, and he was like, son, hey, if I ever got something that's going to help you or someone else that and my dad's literally the other podcast of mine that you've been on as well. Mm-hmm. He's been on there and told his story, and that's where I found that courage that mm-hmm. all this negative stuff that can happen to us, be it we are actually a victim of something, and are self-victimizing, right, and the things that we do. But it's like, once we can kind of wash that out as a family, I remember being at this event, a fundraiser to help my dad with some of his medical bills, and these gentlemen, my dad was a truck driver forever, come up and go, yeah, your dad told me you're coming up near 4 years of continual sobriety. And I'm like, yeah, I'm almost 7 total, but yeah, close to 4. Wow, I'm so proud of you. And you're doing these podcasts and speaking at these conferences, and it's like, there can be such a sense of pride in that I think that's a big part of the stigma, is people, don't, it's shameful. We all have done shameful things. Right. Okay. Especially if you're a person of faith and you really have like a great pastor or pastoral team that really explains sin and gets it out there. It's like, we all have it at different varying degrees and things that we do. And it's like, once we can really be washed to that and go, yes, I've done all these things. I take responsibility, making our amends for non-12-step people, apologizing. It's like life goes, it's just different. It's like that stuff mm-hmm. starts to go away. Like I don't hold shame about the things that I had no choice when I was little that happened to me, or the stuff as an adult, because I did the best I could. And mm-hmm. some people accepted apologies, some did not. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's okay. And I think that's such a huge part of this process for family healing, is let's do the work to get rid of the shame as soon as possible. Right. We got to get our chins up about this and move forward. Yeah.
Yeah. And, with my amends with my family, a lot of it was just like, living amends. Like, they were tired of hearing apologies. They heard it so many times. I mean, there's only so many ways you can say, I'm sorry. So, the proof was in the pudding as far as the way I'm living my life and stuff. But I like what you said about, sorry, I have a cat. I like what you said about kind of like the pride and how, your father's friends were proud of you. I have great admiration for people who go to law school and become doctors and all of that. But people like us, and I mean, not to like toot my own horn, but we've come back from a lot, in some way worse than me. I think I still had it pretty easy. I went through some shit, but, I was very blessed with my circumstances. And so when I see someone who's come from like the pits of hell and they're up there speaking at a convention or whatever, I mean, I'm just in awe, because, it's one thing to fall and not get back up. And then it's another thing to like fall several times and just keep getting up and keeping up. And it's a different kind of respect, And so I feel that same sense of pride. I've even, like, there's a woman who lives on my mom's street, and I never met her before, but we're Facebook friends or something. And when I was promoting my book on Facebook, obviously word of mouth, and she ordered it, and I was at my mom's the other day, like a month or two ago. and she was like taking out her trash, and she came over to me and she was like, "Are you Courtney?" And I'm thinking like, "Oh gosh, like I am, but what did I do? Like, am I getting served?" Because I feel like I've taken care of everything, but there's still stuff that maybe pop up. Anyways, that's neither here nor there, but I was like, yeah, I am. And she was like, I read your book. I wanted you to know I have a niece who's struggling. I sent it to her, she's doing better. And so, I feel such pride when I just meet random people who've ordered my book, and not even ordered it like because they purchased it, but because I know it's getting out there, right? Like I know my message is getting to the people who need to hear it. So even though that woman didn't struggle, her niece was struggling. And so for me, a lot of the stuff I said at meetings and the books I read and the podcasts I heard, it was just like planting the seed. So I take a lot of pride in that. And whenever I come across podcasts on TikTok or whatever, I think I mentioned this before, like sometimes there's just something I need to hear. I might not even know that I need to hear it, but I'll be listening and I'll just be like, yeah, like that really hit, like that really resonated. So I take a lot of pride in the community in general. I feel like there's kind of a recovery movement going on right now, and I could not be more thrilled about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think I agree with you. I think there's become more. We went through this period of, no matter what your opinion is on it, of mandated that we go and we just stay away from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it did a lot of harm. It just did. It did, and I'm not throwing a political stance here or anything like that. I'm just speaking of fact. It did a lot of harm, especially I see it in the recovery community. We lost a shit ton of people.
Yeah.
We lost so many, and really it's when the opioid fentanyl crisis really ramped up.
Yeah.
It really did. It got worse. We knew it was here. Fentanyl's been here for 2 decades, roughly. Yeah. We started really sort of talking about it around a decade ago, but in the last 4 or 5 years when it really ramped up. And that isolation is such a bad thing, and that needing of interaction. And I see a real kind of awakening to that happening. I see more people wanting to be involved, and it's not necessarily you don't have to recovery, but connected to other people. I know that the internet and social media will tell us otherwise, that we're more divided than we are, but I see more people really wanting to explore maybe what a higher power means to them. It doesn't have to be a person in recovery either. I see a lot more people conversing about faith because I literally see it in person. Right. And I go and I have these conversations, or people are wanting to ask me about addiction and what really is going on in our community. Because I live in a very small community. I think the county's maybe 60-something thousand people. We don't have local press that hits it. Really, I mean, on a rare thing, and they're really like, well, this fentanyl thing, is it really here? And I go, yeah, I know 3 people from recovery meetings that I'll never see again. Yeah. So I know it's happening. It was a young man. He he was a very good looking young guy, like a young Antonio Banderas. He had he reminded me of like Desperado with the long hair, slick back. And he comes into a meeting and he talks about, having overdosed twice in one day. But he had a smile on and everything else. And then I hadn't been to meetings for about a month, bumped into a couple guys. I went and asked how this gentleman was doing. Then I go, oh, you didn't hear. And it's happening. It's happening in small communities. It's happening to not just the people that are downtrodden and out on the streets. I grew up in an affluent home. You did too. I never went without, So I think people are becoming more awakened to really what is going on with this. I don't know your take. You're in Texas, so it's a little bit different than California. I might be your neighbor one of these days, but yeah, what are you seeing as far as that?
Yeah, I mean, it's real. It's out there. Unfortunately, I see probably like 1 or 2 posts a week just on Facebook from acquaintances from meetings, RIP or so-and-so gained their wings. My very first sponsor, she had a daughter back in, I think, May. She's 25. She took half of a pill and she was found dead the next day. And that's the closest I know of anyone personally. Downers weren't really my thing. I mean, not that it matters, but most of the people I knew were like tweakers or whatever. But, that one hit home because my sponsor's daughter saw what my sponsor went through. My sponsor at the time had 9 years clean. She's the one that lost custody that I really resonated with when I first got sober. And so to me, I was just like, man, like, her name was Mariah. I was like, she saw you. I didn't say this. I'm thinking it. Like, she saw her mom go through all of this and still, addiction is so strong. Like, she still felt the need to take half a pill, and I mean, who knows what she had in her system? Like, I don't know any of the details, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but that one just hit home because it gives me a little bit of fear of like, well, my daughter's seen me go through a bunch of stuff. Like, God forbid 20 years from now, like I'm in the same position as my sponsor what is. And so, obviously I don't want to freak out about the future that is unknown. I just pray a lot when my daughter's 9 right now, but when she starts to ask questions, I'm gonna be very open and transparent. I dedicated my book to her. So whenever she's old enough to read it, I want her to be able to see like, okay, well, if I do make a mistake or if I do get curious and I can't stop, like mom found a way out, but as far as what we were talking about, yeah, whenever my sponsor texted me, letting me know about her daughter, I mean, I was just floored, because I just feel like as much as me and my sponsor had in common, I was just thinking like, oh gosh, like, please don't let this be something else we have in common, because addiction doesn't discriminate. I was lucky enough for my parents not to have that malfunction in their brain, but yeah, the fentanyl thing, it's crazy. I didn't even know until, I don't know, a few months ago, I was watching an intervention episode and it's just like a little grain of salt can kill you, the size of a grain of salt. I was like, what in the world? Like, that shit blows my mind. Like, that scares me. Like, I don't even want to like walk around and like touch a public like handrail or something in fear that so it's very scary. I'm glad that I wasn't in the game when it was like a huge thing and that uppers were my thing. But yeah, I mean, one decision, one pill, and there's so many young teenagers who are just curious and they don't know any better. So the awareness that's getting out there, I hope that momentum continues, because unfortunately it's always going to be around. They might be able to seize shipments coming in from wherever, but as long as there's humans, there's going to be drugs around. That's just what it is. So I think the awareness is really important. And as sad as the statistics are with the ODs and the deaths and everything, hopefully it scares the younger generation straight. I don't know what it's going to take, for people to stop being curious or stop wanting to like find out for themselves. Cause I wanted to find out from you know what I mean? Like I didn't listen. I didn't heed any warnings. I just went, balls to the wall and wanted to do my thing. But yeah, the fentanyl thing is very, very scary. Very scary. So
New Perceptions North, the premier drug and alcohol treatment and recovery center in Central California. A full continuum of medically supervised top quality care with programs for detox and patient residential treatment with dual diagnosis, intensive outpatient treatment, sober living support groups, and more. New Perceptions North provides adult men and women with the highest caliber of professional health care, treating each client with compassion and respect in a safe, comfortable environment to begin the process of recovery to proudly create and sustain a life without addiction. Call 559-978-1507 or visit newperceptionsnorth.com.
We here at Pain, we're distributors of Narcan.
yeah,
I mean, we're definitely seeing stats that they're showing that overdoses are down, but then it begged the question for us. We wonder then, well, is it just because they're not being reported because there's an overdose, somebody Narcaned them back? I know you're talking about intervention. One of my mentors, Mike Diamond, he's done 2 episodes of intervention as one of the interventionists. The Australian dude, ponytail, really gnarly guy. Yeah. So that's that's my El Capitan.
Yeah.
And that one of the episodes was really interesting that he did because they had it literally taped to their clock in this house that there's like 4 of them living in there, the Narcan, and they talk about it. So they would be kind of almost on rotation with it, so it's become a part of that drug, just like a rig would be if you were
Yeah.
shooting heroin, just like your straw would be if you were a Coke person.
Yeah.
For me, it was knowing the bars that if I tipped the bartender well, I got some really good free drink. It's all a part of that addiction process. So it's, we might be helping save lives or prolong lives, but it doesn't necessarily mean that because Narcan's out there, we're changing lives. So
Yeah.
it's how do we get that early intervention before the overwhelm of the curiosity takes hold, and help someone that was like me, that like, I don't know why it was. I saw it with my dad too. I said I would never go down that road. What was it that I was all of a sudden feeling that I never went to talk to somebody about? Because the sooner we can get you talking about these things, whatever it is. I remember I was speaking at a high school in a class, and this wonderful young lady, and when I shared my story, she had also undergone some sexual abuse. And boy, she's there in tears, and I'm sitting with her and the teacher, because she had confided in the teacher, and just I'm like, let it wash away. Like,
Hmm.
it's not your fault. It's just, it's not, you didn't ask for this. It's okay. Don't blame yourself. Stop with the self-hate. And then we were able to get her some services in the local area to go and talk about. But as soon as we can get more younger people and people in general just going and talking about these
Yeah.
things and finding that acceptance, the world's going to be a lot better place.
Right.
And I think part of that too is helping them understand, because she said something that really resonated with me. Well, people have been mean to me because it happened. And I looked at her and I said, shitty people do shitty things.
Hmm.
And as soon as you can do that, like, don't worry about fighting them. Like, but you don't understand. Don't worry about them not understanding. They
Yeah.
did you a favor. That is now a person you never have to
Right.
interact with again. Like,
Yep.
like that's a blessing. And she's like, I never thought of it that way. I'm like, yeah, they just get to go over there, like,
Yeah.
permanently. You have the power to just put them over there. Don't give them the power. Just go,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I know who you are now. You just go over there.
Yeah. 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 I don't, with the Narcan thing, I feel like it almost, I don't want to say enable, but I feel like, if you're with people and they have Narcan, like, it's not going to prevent someone from doing a little bit more than they normally would because they have a fail safe, right? And like, I kind of have the same opinion on like the needle exchanges. I haven't researched too much of it. It's just all hearsay where addicts can come bring their dirty needles and get clean ones. And like, I get it. I get the lack of, I mean, I get how it's disease prevention and stuff, but that's in my head. And yeah, in my head, that's kind of enabling them as well. Like,
Sure.
if we're going to give you a clean needle to go use, like, we might as well just be giving you a pen to sign your death certificate. If Narcan is available, which I'm glad it is, I carry some with me and I have some in my cabinet just in case. But there's other people who like to kind of play with fire. Like, I used to carry a breathalyzer around on my keychain, like a little mini one, and see how drunk I could get, right? Like, it was like a fun thing for me. So
Yeah.
I can just see that, with the Narcan situation, if you're, doing whatever opiate you want to do and that there's Narcan available, like, for me, if I would be like, okay, well, I can do a little bit more because you can just like bring me back to life. So I feel like things like the needle exchange and the Narcan and all that's kind of a double-edged sword, because even though it saves lives, I think, like you mentioned, it's also, giving people the okay, like the green light to try a little more because now we can bring you back to life. So
Sure. And and for me, where I hold some of the problem with like the needle exchange, for instance, is oftentimes they're not bringing any back.
yeah.
So it's just a needle
Mhm.
give.
Yep.
So there is ending up more on the street. So that is one of the problem areas for me. Plus, to my knowledge, and I'm seeing it happen more, where there is, when people come, almost an interdiction happening. Like, you have a problem, you're gonna die. We're gonna help you. Please come with us. You don't
Yeah.
have to. There should be at every one of those types of situations where, clean needles, whatever it is, harm reduction stuff, where the option is the first thing presented. Like,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna give you that, but we have this. We have these resources. Come. The option is to get clean, and then if they reject it, hey, I understand, but we got to present it. And as far as like with any of the harm reduction or for Narcan, like you were speaking, we had a young man that Flint, the founder here, helped, and he and his buddies used to go under the fentanyl awareness signs and use fentanyl because the reality is, and people go, what? That doesn't make sense. Right, because we're addicts. We're out of our mind.
Right.
We have gone nuts.
Yeah.
We have gone nuts. Something else external of us is controlling us, and it's not good. It's not God-centered. It's not even human-centered.
Right.
So I think that's the hard thing that people maybe don't understand when it's like, well, we're doing these things to help them not die. Yeah. But you're not helping them live either.
Right. Yeah.
And that is my biggest, I guess, mission, or what I feel calling and purpose is, like, I want to help people live.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you get to live. Like, the longer time I get, the more I find out I'm passionate about and enjoying life.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that life is easy. Matter of fact, I'm going through some of the hardest things in my life right now that I would have been right back out at the bar for less, like it didn't take much. It was like, I thought I had $1,000 in the bank. I only have 999. I'm going to the bar, And so we can't really help present people or light the path for them if we're just constantly letting it, because we never know. If we get that opportunity, someone's coming in to come get, Narcan, a needle exchange, and we're saying, this is all here for you, that might be that exact moment where they go, I want to go. Please, I want help. And I think that's what we have to start narrow the gap on, is just getting more people to where they're totally aware that addict, because even in our addiction, we do get moments of clarity. They're rare, but we get
few
them.
and far between.
Right?
Yeah.
So what's the work you're doing now? I know you're helping others.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get on podcasts whenever I can. And I do I haven't done a speaking engagement in a couple months, but, I'm moving right now. And so crazy. But yeah, I mean, I still post when I can on my TikTok. I always talk about how, my inbox is open. I'm pretty active in my church. So I do a little bit. We have Celebrate Recovery at church. It's like a faith-based. Yeah. There's 12 steps too. It's pretty much just like a copycat, but with spiritual, stuff like the Bible verses and things like that. So I'm active doing that. And, I haven't been, I'm sorry to say, I haven't been to a meeting in like a month. My meeting attendance has gone down a little bit, but I keep my little keychain, my NA keychain on, and I've got like my recovery tattoos. And, whenever I encounter someone who just feels like they feel comfortable talking to me, like I just throw my story out there, because like I said, or maybe I didn't, but, someone knows someone who's struggling, whether it be a family member or, I know someone who has a daughter, who has a cousin or whatever. Someone is always struggling. So like me and my daughter went to the fair last weekend, and I have I have a tattoo that says never go back to what God rescued you from, and has my sobriety date on it. And we were in line at the Ferris wheel, and and I was wearing like a tank top. It was hot. It's Texas. It's still like 90 degrees. And we're giving our tickets to the lady at the Ferris wheel, and she was like, "What's your tattoo say?" And I held it out so she could see it. And she's like, "You have no idea how much I needed to hear that." And it was very crowded. Texas State Fair is insane, but she's like, "What does that mean?" And I was like, "Oh, I just, left a toxic situation. God pulled me out of it." And she's like, "I was in a messy marriage for 26 years. He is verbally, physically abusive. And I got out of it just a few years ago." And so I didn't go into depth, about like, "Oh yeah, I was a methamphetamine junkie and I had a needle in my arm." Like, I didn't do that, but, she obviously saw my tattoo and wanted to tell me that she was, she just got out of a really abusive marriage or whatever. And so, whenever people comment on that, or like I said, my keychain or whatever, I just, I'm just like, yeah, I struggled a lot. I might not go into detail, but I think just like the camaraderie of someone knowing that someone else is out there that might have a little bit, who might be able to relate, to whatever they're going through or whatever, and so there's just a lot of, for me, I'm not ashamed, I'm in the medical field. And so I deal with patients a lot. And so I feel like, and my boss actually knows my story. They read my book. I've been at this company for almost 4 years. So like, since then I got my kid back, I got married, I published my book. So I've made lots of milestones, so to speak, at this company. Anyway, so I don't really hide who I am, but I have patients that some of them are a little bit stuck in, in the ancient days, whatever. So I read the room, so like if I'm working with a patient one-on-one and I know they're a little bit, like, oh, this is a millennial, or, I can kind of sense how they are, but more often than not, because when I'm in my scrubs, my tattoo show, and when they ask, I kind of just be like, oh yeah, I was just in a really bad situation that I got out of a while ago. And that opens the communication, right? And if they want to go on about it, like, oh yeah, blah, XYZ. And then I'm like, okay, well, and I kind of tiptoe into it because I don't want to jeopardize my job, right? Like I'm there to be a professional, but I also just feel like personally it's a duty to like spread the message. If someone is in my presence, or, if we're having a conversation, it needs to be said, right? So, if opportunity presents itself, even at work, if there's a patient who comments on a tattoo or we're just talking or whatever, I try and just like sprinkle a little bit of hope in a conversation, and I work night shift too. So I'm kind of like a nocturnal person. I don't get out a whole lot. I'm a mom, a wife, night shifter, 12-hour shifts. So I kind of am a recluse, but, whatever I can, as far as, helping other people, I try and make sure that anybody who I talk to knows that whatever they're going through, there's hope. No one's ever too far gone. No situation is ever too shitty to come back from. There's no sin so great that God can't forgive, that sort of thing. And I know that sounds cliche. And I know, especially early in my sobriety, I was so over the cliches. Like I was like, I swear, if one more person tells me to let go and let God, like I'm going to unleash and let go on someone. Yeah. So, but I mean, it's true. And the longer I'm clean and sober, like the more God shows up and shows out. Like, as long as I do the next right thing, like I can't deny those cliches, like or I guess cliche might be a wrong word, but those statements, I mean, they're true. That's why they've become so popular and all that, because it's just what it is. They're just facts. It's not an annoying little saying anymore. Like that's what happens. Like God comes up and comes out whenever you do the right thing. And you're staying clean and on the straight and narrow, like your life just gets good. And whenever it's not good, it's still better than it would be if you were in your addiction.
Yeah.
So
100%.
That was really long-winded for your question. Sorry about that.
That's why you're a good speaker. You got a lot to say. No apologies needed. No apologies needed. If you could once again tell people, the title of the book, easiest way to get it, and your preferred way, maybe if they want to get a hold of you and reach out.
Yeah. So the book is called The One Brought Back by Courtney Proper. It's on Amazon. The Kindle version is like 99 cents, and the paperback I think is like $10, but that's the only place you can get it right now. It's not in stores. It's at some half price books, which is cool, but obviously that's not, whatever. And then, my email is Courtney@recoveredonpurpose.org. It's also in the back of the book, but it's kind of my email for my platform. I'm an associate with Recovered on Purpose. But, I have the right TikTok from Journey of a Recovering Addict. I think you have the handles or whatever. I'll send them to you. They're from our last episode. But yeah, and then my Facebook, Courtney Proper. I'm always on that. I post personal things on there, but a lot of my social media is going to be like, a couple Bible scriptures or just like positive affirmations or whatever. And it's public. And I do that on purpose. A lot of my friends have like private profiles, like you have to add them or whatever to see it. But once again, like I don't have any shame. And so like, if I'm not friends with someone, but they type in my name, like they're going to see all the positive shit I post. I'm, I try and keep it positive. Obviously life isn't always that way, but like I said earlier, sometimes I listen to a podcast and someone says just the right thing at the time I need to hear it. So like my profile is going to be public, because if someone just happens to like click through and they wind up on my page, who knows, they might see a post from like 3 days ago to where it's something they needed to see or hear or read or whatever. So absolutely. Courtney Prover is a Facebook, and my TikTok and my email. Oh, just blank.
That's all right. I'll have all the links in the podcast description.
Yeah.
Hey, my friend, it was good to talk to you again. I'm proud of you as you continue to grow and thrive. Seriously, I just a real joy.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on again.
Absolutely. And if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button right now. Leave a thumb up on the video and a comment. I'll share those with Courtney. She'll be able to see. And maybe even if you have questions, leave them there in the comments. And of course, we're available on Apple Podcast and Spotify, where you can subscribe and leave a rating and a review. And please share with someone else that you think will get value out of the Don't Hide the Scars podcast.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, at 559-579-1551, or visit us online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Pain Nonprofit. And please subscribe to the Don't Hide the Scars podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And if you would like to donate to PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, please click the link in the description to make your tax-deductible donation today and help us save more lives gripped by addiction.